Hello, I'm making this video to demonstrate my new Max for Live instrument, Snap, which is a snare drum synthesizer. It's actually inspired by the FM modeling method described in this Venus Theory video, so I'll leave a link to that in the description. He uses several instances of FM8 to sort of create the components of a snare drum sound, and I decided to try to consolidate that into a single plugin, single Max for Live device, so everything is in one spot and a little more streamlined. But the interface is a little bit unconventional, so I decided I'd make this companion video to explain sort of the basics of the workflow. So, starting with the instrument, which is this device right here, we have, well, first of all, this is what the default sound sounds like. Responds pretty well to dynamics. And the layout, we can see this big matrix in the middle, which is an FM matrix. So the way this works is each one of these rows, and you can see there's it sort of starts here and ends over here, is an operator. So an operator in FM is a basically an oscillator, and it can either modulate or be modulated, with either the frequency or the phase being modulated. So actually, this is the phase, which is the traditional method of FM, even though it's called frequency modulation quite a lot of the time. Including DX7s, it's actually the phase that's being modulated. So our operator 1, which is here at the bottom, or operator A, is the one that's being modulated the most of the time. So if we actually clear this out, we reset it. This bottom row is the output, so this is sort of the outputs of operator A, and it's being fed to the output of the synth. So, oops. We can hear that tone. I'm actually going to turn down the other components of the tone for now, and we'll go through them one by one. We'll just focus on the body of the sound for now. So it actually just starts with a sine wave, so that's nothing happening to it, and that's like this sort of row and column being fed to the output. So if we want to feed operator B to the output, we would do it here. Operator C. Now, the key thing with FM is actually we are modulating one operator with another. So if we would like to modulate the phase of operator A with operator B, we would do it in this cell here. And if we'd like to modulate the phase of operator B with operator C, we would do it here. Which is also modulating operator A. So the advantage of a matrix over something like operator that has these built-in modulation algorithms is that we can actually modulate anything anywhere. So including actually to itself. So this diagonal column starting at the top left corner and ending down here is actually self-feedback, which can get wildly out of control. And there is a slight delay just because of the nature of the workings of Max for Live. So why might we want this whole FM matrix when we're modeling a snare drum? Well, I'll leave most of this to you guys if you want to watch the Venus Theory video. But the basic idea is that we can start with several tones, which we can see the frequencies of right here. So our fundamental, and then some overtones. And that gives us a good sort of approximation of the resonance of a snare drum shell. but there's actually quite a lot of anharmonic resonances that are not like a clear multiple of the original fundamental frequency. So when we add FM, we can actually get a lot of sort of weird harmonics where things are generating a lot of extra little overtones, and we can get a lot of these complex harmonics with these just subtle modulations. So I'm going to return to the default state, which is more or less the snare drum sound that was made in the Venus Theory video. So that's about what the drum sounds like for the body tone. And again, it's the fundamental 5 overtones and a whole bunch of modulation. And the reason for this ratio setup here, you can see we have the frequencies we're ending up with in this column, but then we have these tuning ratios. So if we start with this fundamental tone, we can set this to whatever we want. You can see everything's changing. But we can retune everything as like a ratio relative to the fundamental frequency. So by doing that, everything will scale nicely if we do raise this fundamental frequency. So we can get a frequency by adjusting the coarse tuning of any of these to just below the frequency we want, the sort of next frequency below, and then the fine tuning to get it precisely there. And of course, double clicking will reset any of the parameters. So on this side, we have our amplitude envelopes for each of the operators, just decay time and the envelope curve. The -50 is this descending exponential, negative exponential decay. But we can change these, of course, and make them longer if we want. The general idea in the Venus Theory video was that the lower tones would have a slightly longer decay, so 300 milliseconds here, and the higher overtones would decay a little bit faster. And you can see it goes down to 198. So that's the body of the snare drum. I'm just going to turn off the level for that. And if we click this tab that says smack is sort of encompassing buzzword, I guess, for the different transient components of and the higher frequency components of the drum. So if we turn up the level for snap is like the actual transient of the snare drum. When you first hit it, that sort of click of the stick hitting the head, and we approximate that with another FM pair, a carrier and a modulator. So with the mod index at 0, we just have the carrier, which is a pure sine wave. You can set the frequency of that. Let's bring in some of the modulation. And changing the modulator will drastically change the tone. But I found the default values give us sort of a stick-like sound. It's kind of just a burst of noise, but not quite as random as using noise. There's a bit more oscillation, but you can choose values that work for you. And then the same thing, we have a amp envelope with a decay time and a curve. For this being the stick, we have it set pretty quickly, but you can set it to whatever you want, whatever makes sense. So the next module is the crack, which is sort of a clap sound, and this is just this is just white noise with a bandpass filter. So a lot of early drum machines, like 808s, I believe, they used a active twin T filter to make the snare sound. I think it was the snare sound that used the twin T filter, but you can basically, if you set the Q or the quality down to 0, you're letting most of the spectrum through. And you can narrow the filter by bringing this up and change the frequency. So if you want more of a white noise, you can have this down. But again, we'll go for the default settings for now. And the last module is buzz, which is sort of the snare wire sound. This is sort of the obvious one. So this is another white noise source, just this time with a high pass filter and a different amp envelope. So nothing special going on, but it's nice to have it be a separate noise generator from this, so we can sort of tune the envelope and the filter in a way that makes sense. So if we bring them all together, that's sort of the noise component. And then when we bring the body back in, oops, we have the base of our drum sound. So in the smack tab to the right of the generators, we have a transient shaper and a compressor. So they sort of speak for themselves. The transient shaper adds, you can either boost the attack or sort of the sustain, which is the tail. And the compressor just does what it says on the tin. And the compressor gain is actually on the right. I just couldn't fit it. And there's a overdrive, which I think should always be left on, at least partially open. And finally, the output level here on the bottom right. The transient designer and the compressor do require a additional VST plugins, the VST3 version of the Kilohertz Essential Bundle, which is the plugins that Venus Theory used in his video, but they are free. They're good quality effects. I wanted to build these from scratch in Max for Live, but it would have required Jen to get the sample accurate patching, which is a license I haven't purchased yet. So I think they're good to include in here, but you do have to download these additional free plugins. Otherwise, I don't think it will load correctly. I'll leave a link for the Kilohertz Essential Bundle in the video description. So there's actually built-in velocity scaling. So with this knob all the way down to 0%, no matter what goes in, so it's going to come out maximum volume. So with this parameter turned all the way up, we're affecting the amplitude of the body, but also filtering out some of these upper partials on quieter notes. So the filter side kind of comes down in quieter notes. But the sort of the crack of the drum, the buzz and everything still is let through. That doesn't get changed by the filtering. So for post-processing, you might want a little bit of EQ, definitely some reverb. This is just the stock convolution reverb in Ableton. There's this made for drums folder that has a couple nice ones. Percussion plate. Works well on snares. Snare drum A. I think there's some good plates as well. Depending on what you're going for. Some rims as well would work well for a snare. So that's the basis of the plugin. not too complicated, but the interface is a little unconventional, so I just wanted to make this video to explain it, and hopefully this helps. It should respond to automation and save properly and everything, but if there's any bugs that I'm not aware of, just send me a comment, either on maxforlive.com or on my Ko-fi page. Either one I should be able to see, so let me know if there's any bugs, and I hope this is useful for you guys making music.